Good evening, hello everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. It is a Wednesday night. We are in the aftermath of the Rugby Championship, which is coming to an end, and we've got no more Springbok Rugby now for quite a while, actually, which is weird. It's very weird because, I think that Georgia game must have been, I'm trying to think back now, about July. I think it was like first weekend of July. And the longest we've gone without a Springbok game has been 2 weeks since then, and we're now going to have to wait until the 6th or 7th of November, the 6th of November, until we see the Springboks in action once again. So a bit of a wait for all these Springbok fans, stuff like that. But I think we can all agree that we've had a lot of international rugby, and it probably wouldn't be the worst thing to have a bit of a break. Trying to get away from everything, maybe let's get the emotions out. It's been a very emotional few months. Kind of just sort of be able to get back into our local rugby a bit more, and then sort of decide where we need to go for the end of year tour. And obviously, we know where we're physically going geographically, but in terms of the direction of the team, a very interesting tour in sort of the grand scheme of things. When you think that we are now pretty much less than almost 2 years until Rugby World Cup 2023, and next year will be the final end of year tour before we go into that 2023 year, which will have a mid-year tour, a rugby championship, a shortened rugby championship, and then we're straight into the Rugby World Cup. So in terms of building a side, we lost last year, which would have been a useful sort of time to try and do that. So it kind of comes down to this tour and the Wales incoming tour next year. But if we're going to be brutally honest, I think that's sort of the time where we can start bringing in players and start sort of getting players ready to become part of the Springbok set that's moving forward in terms of sort of building that depth. And it's interesting because a lot of people are also talking about the Springboks as an aging squad, which I don't think is entirely correct. I think it's most players will still be in a relatively good or decent age come the next sort of World Cup. I think it's a couple of players who obviously will sort of move along and stuff like that. But I think if we're looking at the ages of a lot of these players, and we'll go through them, I don't think we're as old as a lot of people are sort of saying that we are, but it still is an interesting time in terms of having to sort of bring in depth, and I think depth is a very interesting point. Sort of in the next hour, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Springboks in terms of what we want to do at the end of the year, in terms of what you guys like to see, some players that you'd like to see and stuff like that. We'll be talking a little bit about the URC and stuff like that, although we will be talking about the URC in more detail tomorrow night in our Thursday night panel show, which will be a URC preview basically ahead of this weekend, talking about our teams, what to expect and stuff like that. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about the Sharks who named their side for this weekend. We'll talk a little bit about the Rassie Erasmus situation and a couple of news stories and stuff like that. So jump in the comments. Let me know how your week's going. Let me know how it's. Are you missing international rugby? Are we glad that we're having a bit of a break? I personally am quite glad we're having a bit of a break. We've had a lot of Springbok rugby. It's very, very emotional and a bit of a roller coaster. I'm quite thankful to have a little bit of a sort of a refresh. But yeah, so good evening, Paul. Good evening, Fish News of Rugby. Good evening, Peters. Blindman Pepper Spray says, for the Boks, they need a new young 15 and let the player have time. Either Gelant, Fassi, Willemson have France stands back up to teach them. Gregory says, is the Boks allowed to play for their fringe teams? Are you talking about the URC team and stuff like that? In which case, not until January. At this stage, in the looks of it. Good evening, Brendan. Good evening, Kevin. Good evening, Kelly Kuhn, who says, did you hear about the Stormers lock has been cited for biting accusation at the weekend? Yeah, RJ Smith, and I said in the weekend, I think the problem when it comes to biting sanctions or biting accusations is it's very few players will just wake up and decide they got bitten. So where there's smoke, there's usually fire when it comes to biting incidents. The problem is that as we saw in the actual match itself, you can't see anything. It's the camera angle, because I'm trying to remember who it was on. I think it was on. Who was it on? It's all just on. I think it was the hooker. But he was being held in by the player, which is why he reacts. Not that you can just bite someone. Also, I'm a bit worried about where he was biting because he was very much being pulled into the lap of the chap. So, hope he didn't give the Munster man a bit of a trim there. But yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And I think RJ Smith could be in trouble if they do find any sort of evidence, but it is quite difficult to find evidence looking at the footage and stuff like that. Good evening, ladies. Good evening, Keen to Cock. The England versus Springboks game will be huge at the end of their tour. And nice that's the last game as well. I read the search for new tennis on. Good evening, Steve. Good evening, Mark. Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's having a fantastic week so far. I've had a good week. I've had two days with the girlfriend, which is cool. So yeah, I had the 2 days for another month wait. So not too fun, but yeah. And yeah, the weekend is going to be a bit less hectic, which would be nice because it's just been. We've been flat out since the Georgia test. So I'm quite keen for a bit of a break. It was also quite cool this week. We picked up our first run of our merch today. So I got this new golfer, which I'm very chuffed with. A couple of orders coming in, which is very cool. So I'm having a good week. But let's start with the Springboks, shall we? And if we're looking at the Rugby Championship, because I did a video earlier today, and I was actually pretty chuffed with the comments that I sort of got, because I think a lot of people are. I think we're getting a lot more reasonable. I think we're sort of moving away from being incredibly knee-jerk reaction. I think, if you go a couple of years, and it's fine because it's very much passion-based and it's very sort of reaction stuff like that. But I think that we're now becoming a little bit more, what's the word? Measured, I think is probably a good way of putting it, where we're not freaking out after every single Springbok loss. And I think that victory against New Zealand was paramount to where the Springboks are at the moment. I think if we had lost to New Zealand, I think the Springbok squad would be under a lot of pressure. I think Jacques Nienaber and his coaches would be under a lot of pressure. But I think having won that game and having a little bit of introspective thinking about the bubble and about just how tough a year it has been, I'm glad to see a lot of Springbok fans are quite sort of, first of all, behind the team, and also quite sort of quite ready to sort of accept that there are other sort of circumstances. So, I was looking at some of the comments about, was the Rugby Championship a success? In fact, we're going to do a comment like that. Was the Rugby Championship a success for the Springboks? And I'm interested to look. I mean, I don't. And the easy answer is no. But I also don't think it was a failure in many ways. So I'm interested to see what you guys have got to say about that, because I think that if we look at the Rugby Championship, obviously we went there and we wanted to win, and we wanted to. That was the plan to try and go out and win. But for me, as soon as the fixtures were announced, I sort of had to thinking it would be a massive ask, and the first thing was to get the Blind Series done, and we did that. We then beat Argentina twice, very nice rotation, cool. I look back at the Rugby Championship, and I think that there's one game which was a problem, and that was that second Australian game, because we got outplayed. We played really badly, and I think that's the only game the entire year where the Springboks have run onto the field and haven't looked there. We got outplayed by Australia for the first time, and what was nice was to see. That you do learn from these experiences, and Jacques Nienaber even had a bit of a reflection in that final sort of press conference, sort of saying that we should have done this in the first New Zealand test, we should have done that, and they did that in the second test, and they sort of read through awards. So there's always going to be a very much a learning process. So on the face of it, obviously it's not a successful Rugby Championship because we ended third. I do think that the frustration lies in where I think we probably would have been fairly happy with second had we won that first Australian test, which we should have done. And I think if we had gone through that the Rugby Championship, if we had beaten Australia and Argentina twice, Australia once, and New Zealand once, and we'd won 4 out of 6 games, I think we would be sitting there going, you know what, that's a decent Rugby Championship. We came second. It was a big ask. We've had a big year. That was a decent Rugby Championship. I think that probably one result is probably what sort of slides it towards it not being a successful tour. I probably would have liked to see more players play. I think we did take a very big squad, and I know that you always want to play your best teams every week in, week out. But I think that, especially after we saw what France State and Alton Yankees did in the final test, it would have been nice to have seen a bit more of our squad. And that's where I'm very keen for the end of the year, because I'm very interested to see what we do with the squad and whether we actually start looking at leaving some players behind in terms of going forward, in terms of players who might be very tired, some mental fatigue. Are there players we need to rest, for example? Do we go and say, right, you know what, this player's played a lot, maybe we actually leave him behind and we don't take him on the end of the year tour, because there are some players who have gone straight from the European season straight into the box, play the full line stage, play the full rugby championship. They've got 2 weeks now, and then they go. So maybe there is a case for certain players to maybe not be involved in the end of year tour, which probably won't be the case. But it would be interesting, and even if they go with the squad, maybe not play as much. In terms of the game time and stuff like that. But what are we thinking? So okay, on the RJ Smith incident, to me it was not clear. However, I did notice it close enough to scan his leg in the replay, but if not clear, then no sanction. Yeah, I agree. Ireland versus New Zealand. Look at some very nice games at the end of the year. Connie, I'm here to answer your questions. Appreciate you. So good to see the Springboks back on top of the world rugby, and I think that's probably the biggest thing, isn't it? Is that we are still number. Well, we're back to being number one. And the fact that we're back to number one, I think I can look back, I can get over this rugby championship. I'm not going to be beating myself up. I'm not going to be upset about it. I think that it could have been better. I think it could have been a lot worse. And I think that we took a big step forward in that last game, and we sort of saw us going back towards what we've been asking for, which I always did say was going to take time. You know, it was always going to take a bit of time for us to be able to sort of move towards being a bit more positive with ball in hand, which we started to see in that New Zealand game. And I'm very keen to see how we start playing at the end of the year. Hubie says, I love Nick Mailed on the breakdown. I haven't seen it. I'll go check it out. Kevin, start thinking about South Africa B-team tour, perhaps to place like Argentina. Yeah, we've been saying this a lot on the channel. We really like to see a genuine a South Africa A team, you know, where we can get all the French players playing together, all the youngsters, your Evan Rust, your Vincent Tukas, your Pessy Boutlezis, your Edel van der Merwes, your who else? We'll give you some names here. Some very exciting youngsters coming through. Your Sam Murats, your Ruan Nokias, you know, your just want to see the Simulanis and let them play together. Well, I think Simulani should be in the actual box squad, to be honest. But yeah, Louis says we learned what not to do. I think there was no outcome overall for SA. Losing twice to Aussie cancels out beating New Zealand. I agree, losing twice to Australia, who got stuffed by New Zealand Box underperformed in the tournament. I think it's just that one game, which I suppose we did underperform, because we shouldn't have lost. You don't lose back to back to Australia, and we shouldn't. But I mean, we played well enough to beat them, and that's where the frustration is. But yeah, Hooper says a success, no, but we learned a lot about what we need to work moving forward. Not a success because third place shouldn't be enough for us. Fair enough. Got to feel bad for Argentina. Yeah, look, I think, because you said South Africa had 2 bad games, Argentina had a whole bad tournament. I feel desperately sorry for Argentina. I think that they've been put through the worst in the last sort of year, and they've had to go away from home. They've had very little time together. They've had very little rugby as a nation. And I think that if I'm an Argentina fan, I would be writing off the last 18 months and saying, just it didn't happen. We played. Let's actually try to have a decent end of year tour, and then we actually just press reset. And I think Argentina need to get playing properly. And we need to get. Mario Ledesma talked about it, and he just said it's been unbelievably tough on the team, on the players. I think it has. They've had a very raw deal, far worse than probably what we've had. Ricardo says it was good for the box. Just need to develop our game more for World Cup. Shane Tilbury says the fact is, even playing badly, they had opportunity to win every game. Box should run with the ball simple. I think that's the major thing, isn't it? You know, as I said, I think maybe apart from that Australia game, that second Australia game, every single game we were in the contest. Every single game could have got either way. So that is a positive thing. You know, even if you play badly, if you're coming close to winning or even getting a victory, that's the sign of a proper team. And I think that we are very much in that situation. I think I'm very comfortable with where we are. It's about now getting the balance in terms of extending the depth and sort of being able to build on what we've established. Baka might go back to the kicking game for the end of your tour. Well, you are playing in Europe in November, so I don't think we'll stray too much away from things. Clinton says Andre Paul is our biggest problem. Stephen, we lost all our games because of him. Look, I don't think we lost that second Australian game, but there is the argument that if he kicks better, we win both the Australia first game and that first New Zealand game. There's definitely a very big argument for that. I would like to see him on the bench at the most in that first game against Wales. I would like to see Alton Yankees run out in the 10. I mean, why not? What did he do wrong when he came on? He was asked to do a job. He came on. He did it. I'd like to see him get a reward for that. Arcus name and Jan Klussen for end of year tour. Yeah, interested to sort of see which players will be called up. And we're going to go through the squad now, the current squad, and then we can have a bit of a look in terms of players that we probably need to look at replacing moving forward. Mark says, I think the box will be in transition to used to no rugby for 18 months. Chester says, I know these days we don't like to talk to the rest, but how about the ref we had this weekend against New Zealand? Where do we go from here? And when do we have a target on our backs after the Rusty video? Look, there is a video doing the rounds on the refereeing this weekend. And what I will say is, when you look at these videos, first of all, I don't like highlighting offsides because I think offsides are they're very tight calls anyway. And it's very easy to slow a freeze frame down and say, look, he's actually 30 centimeters that way, therefore he's not offside. I think that offsides are very much, as a referee, you look up and you blow what you see. So I don't really like identifying offsides because, look, I mean, big mistakes are big mistakes, but I think that those are always so 50-50 and close. I don't think it's fair to scrutinize those sort of calls. It's more sort of, I don't think calls themselves should be scrutinized. It's trends. I think trends are worrying. You know, when you're seeing the same thing over and over again, that's not being picked up, that becomes a worry. That also, if you've seen that video, which is doing the rounds, they don't actually understand the interpretation of the 50-22 because there's a lot of talk about the fact that we shouldn't have had a 50-20. We should have had 50-22s when we actually shouldn't. The rule with the 50-22 is play has to originate in your half when you kick it into the 22 for it to be a 50-22. You cannot be in their half, pass backwards past the halfway line, kick into the 22 and get a 50-22. That's a very important part that people need to understand. And even the URC commentators weren't understanding it this weekend. And that video did get it wrong. So I think we need to just make sure we understand the rules. But yeah, look, I think that I think refereeing is very much in the spotlight, and I think it'll be interesting to see what will happen in the next year. I also think that South Africa have got a pretty poor quality of referees at the moment, and we need to sort of step up our game as well, and hopefully that we will. Yeah, so Hooper says we need to phase Vili out. Can't really blame the referee. Vili was shocking in last game. Agreed. At least I can point out the thing is very clear about his situation. Vili Ruiz had his day. Time for me. I want to move him out. He is not good enough with him anymore. Can't wait for England versus SA again. Arsenal Wenger says for 2021 the priority was to win the British and Irish Lions. I feel we could have had better in the championship, but we get to fine tune a lot of things in Australia for the end of year tour. I 100% agree with this. I 100% agree with this. I think that is exactly where I stand. At the beginning of the year, it was all British and Irish Lions. So whilst we could have done better, and that's what he said, we could have done better, we learned a lot and we progressed. So draw a line under the sand. Warwick Galant or Fassi at 15? Hooper reckons Fassi. Guido says Fassi because he's in good form compared to Galant. Mate, did you watch Fassi this weekend though? Yo. Fassi, I mean, Galant this weekend was proper. I'm going Warwick Galant. If you guys follow the channel, you'll know I'm a very, very big Galant fan. I think that we forget how good the rugby he was playing last year before he got injured. And look, I know Fassi's a fantastic talent. There'll probably be a rhetoric now. Stephen hates Fassi, which is nonsense. But I think Galant is the natural replacement. I think Fassi will start to contend, but Galant's been there. He's done that. He's done that for years and years and years. And he's got the full package, and he looks in very good form. So if we look at our squad, the current squad. In fact, I want to try and put this on the screen for you guys, and we can have a shaky, shall we? No, that's not what I want to see. There we go. And I'm just going to bring you across to there. This will also give us a good indication of sort of where our players are based and stuff. So this is our current squad. So if we're looking at, and the reason I'm looking at this is I want to look at ages, because people are saying that there's a bit of a rhetoric that we're an aging squad, which I think is nonsense. Hookers, our oldest hooker is Bongi Manambi, who turns 31 in January, which means he will be 32 come the next World Cup. After that, Malcolm Marx will be 29 in the next World Cup. Kobala will be 25. Joseph Devil will be at 27. So, I think that hookers we are very much all right with. If we're looking at props, Thomas Totoy, 29. So 31 the next World Cup. Vincent Clark will be a bit old, 33. Wilco Lowe, 29. Francois Maher will be 32. Oxenchair will be 28. Trevor Nukani will be 34. So, yeah, look, I mean, it's a bit of, I mean, they're not the youngest guys. Obviously, Thomas, I mean, sorry, Chris is 29, Thomas Latoya 26. So you got Thomas Latoya and you've got Wilco Lowe and Oxenchair, who are a bit of the youngest generation. I think you got the likes of Carly Sadi coming through, which is good to see. There's a couple of nice props coming through. So I'm not too worried about props there. But again, even there, the oldest player will be Trevor at 34. And 34 these days, I mean, that's not old. It's not old, 34. I mean, Australia got the 38-year-old prop. So I mean, Trevor's the oldest. First of all, he's the oldest player we've seen so far in these squads, and he'll be 34 in the next World Cup, which is not horrendous. We're looking at our locks. Lurt will be 30. Perfect. Reinhard Alstad, I mean, I don't really care much for Reinhard Alstad. I don't think he'll be involved. But Etzebeth will be 31, which is no issue. Nico Jats van Rensburg, if he's part of the squad, will be 29. That's not much of an issue. Franco Moss will be 32. He's the oldest lock in the thing. So 32. In fact, he'll actually be 31 because technically he wouldn't have turned 32 yet. Because he's born quite late in the year. So that's also not much of an issue. And then Ari and Sneyman's also pretty young still. He's 26 years old, so he'll be 28. Looking at our loose forwards, this is the big issue, isn't it? It's whether Dwayne can make it. And now I don't think he makes it. I don't think at 37 he does the job that we need him to do, unfortunately. I think he's very important from a mentorship type of point of view. But I think it's just I just don't think he'll be playing. I'll be surprised if he is our best number 8 at 37 when you consider the players we've got coming through at the moment. But apart from that, Sia Khaleesi will be 32. That's not much an issue. Quokka Smith will be 30. That's fine. Marco Verstappen, if he's involved, will be 28. That's fine. Jasper will be 27. That's fine. Scrum Faf will be 31. That's fine. Hendricks, I'm sure probably will be involved. He'll be 23. Herschel will be 27. Kubas will be 33. That's not an issue. Here we go. Alton will be 33. Not much of an issue. Pollard will be 29, not an issue. Mornestein won't be involved. In the centers, the Kanya Arm and Damien Delendi, 29 and 31. 30 really, because he wouldn't have turned 31 there yet. Jesse Creel's 27. I think Francois Steyn probably also won't be there. Wings, Colby will be 29. Makazuma Pimp will be 33. But Spoo and Course will be 27. Roscoe won't be involved. Fassi will be 25. Billy LaRue, that's the big question. Willem will still be young. And I think you add Warwick Galant, who's about 29. So, I think if you look at that squad, I don't call that an aging squad. Not for the next World Cup. I think at the next World Cup, there will be an older squad, and then there will have to be a complete revamp. But I don't think it's a squad that we have to right now go, well, if we don't replace players right now, we won't have a squad. We're going to have like 15 new players in the new team. I don't think it's that old. We've only got, in the current squad, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 out of a 45-man squad are 30 or above, which means you've got 37 people. No, obviously less than that. You've got about 30 players who are younger than 30, which I think is fine. I think it's a very nice sort of balance. I also think that obviously all those players, Speckman drops out, Frans Steyn drops out, Mornestein drops out, and probably Dwayne Vermeulen, I think, drops out. I'd be very surprised if he makes the next World Cup. But generally, I think we're in a very nice situation. So the immediate concerns in terms of the end of the year tour and is the for me fullback. And we need to start in the fullback. And I think Warwick and Upland Fassi will start contending for that. I think number 10. I think I'd like to see Andre probably being put under a little bit of pressure to try and do a job. And then we probably need to look at our centers, not in terms of our starting centers, but who sort of comes in after them. Who's our inside center replacement and stuff like that. I think that's probably more. Those are probably positions right now we need to look at. What would be interesting wing-wise is if Pius Janti ever gets his band sorted and he's playing rugby by that time, because he could be an immediate replacement for Mapimpi in the squad if he has dropped off the park. But at 33 years old, it's not exactly old. But I mean, I think we all remember how flipping good Pius Janti was. So if he's back and playing the rugby he walks back into the squad. So Kingstar are back Kalant as well. Unlocked solid amongst the defense at times. Kevin says South Africa has 10 players to run ball. We can't leave our landmark driving scrum kicking game. New t-shirt. Stephen hates Fassi. Could you imagine? Kalant has dropped the odd high ball. Yeah, look, I think I think also with Kalant, he's about 3 games back from injury, maybe 4. So I think he's still sort of working his way back to his best. But I mean, the rugby he was playing last year was childish. It was genuinely childish. He's got a massive boot on him. He's a very physical player. He's a very good attacking talent. I think he is the natural replacement. So Liam Williams of Wales, fullback, we might miss out some autumn internationals. He has just had his appendix out. Well, that'd be a big miss for them. Big fan of Liam Williams, very, very good. I mean, the best under the high ball. Ken Cruz says he doesn't play many games where the Gary Owens dominate the game. Willie France, Dave Morningstar, and Dwayne is the ones that will have to go. Tend to agree. By the way, that last 5 minutes block was a great win in the second New Zealand game. The weekend just showed the world rugby that DNA in rugby is irrelevant if the opposition can run you off the park. Contender says the fussy improves at his defense and high ball. We may have our own Liam Williams. The guy that will overtake Dwayne is Evan Ruiz. Yeah, current look. I mean, Evan Ruiz and FFC Buthelezi, and the fact that those two, I think, are going to go toe to toe, really excites me. So I think that those two are proper players. So I think Stormers centers should be looked as well. Both were major and a few times Stormers breached the Munster defense. Yeah, look, I mean, I really rate Dan du Plessis. I think Dan du Plessis is a tremendous player. I think Ruan now. I mean, he was part of the box squad. He's quite old these days. I think he's about 32. Actually, no, I didn't think he said. I think he actually pretty well off there. 30. I'll say 30. So he's not old. He was in the squad at one stage. Was Ruan now. Big fan of Dan du Plessis. I think he's a very, very nice player. Chess says, I agree the guy's full of running, talking about Evan and Ruiz. Flavors away from me. Andre is the only consistent 10 we got. Alton has been trying to test. He may finish the game, but when he starts, tends to fade in the game. Well, I think it's, I mean, look, fly half, there's a bit of a generational gap, isn't there, in terms of the players we've currently got and then sort of the next generation. I think it's very frustrating that Jordan Hendricks has now injured himself for 3 months because I think that, I don't think he's ready for box rugby just yet at 20 years old, but he'll be 22 in the next World Cup, and I'd love him to be in a position to be able to go on tour with the box, be in that setup, because I think Jordan Hendricks is the future at fly half. I think he's a tremendous player. Just very, very, very raw talent. And I think him and Jaden Henderson will very likely be a Springbok 9 and 10 combination one day. There's also obviously a couple. There's a lot of fly halves coming through. I don't think Boeta Chamberlain will ever sort of get to that level. Obviously, there's Johan Goosen, who I think sort of replaces Morningstar. But I'm interested to sort of see the role that Johan Goosen will have in the box squad. Although he hasn't played particularly well in the first 2 games in the URC, so he needs to sort of start imposing himself on the game a little bit. Look, the Bulls haven't played well, but that is something I said before. I said, Johan Goosen's obviously torn up the Curry Cup, but you need to go and tear up the URC. Because at the end of the day, with no disrespect to other teams, but beating a Greek side, doing it against the Puma side, and the Lions side we saw during the Curry Cup is very different to doing that against Ireland and against Scotland and against Wales and against New Zealand and against Australia. So he didn't do it against Leicester. He didn't do it against Connacht. I want to see better performances from him this weekend, hopefully. Carlos says Damian Williams at 12 with Milani 13, maybe. Look, I'd love to see it at the end of your tour. We know that Lukhanyo is world class, but I would like to see. Look, a lot of people sort of saying that we need Jesse Creel back in the mix. The problem is that Jesse Creel's played a couple of games for the Boks, and I didn't think he was particularly impressive. And I don't get to watch him. He plays in Japan, so unfortunately, I've got no idea what his form is for the Yokohama Cannon Eagles. But Similani is working with Jacques Fourie at the moment. And I think that should be as an outside centre that needs to work on their defense as their biggest sort of part of the game, the only sort of part of the game where they need a fix. Who better to work with than one of the defensively the greatest outside centres of all time? So I think if Jacques Fourie fixes Similani's defense, he walks ahead of Jesse Creel for me. That guy never seems to go backwards when he takes the ball. His feet are he always seems to beat someone. So he's got everything. He just needs to work on his defense. And I think that him and Lukhanyo, if you've got those two as your outside center options, that's childish. Lukhanyo defensively so much better than Similani, obviously, but he's still young and needs to learn that. De Jong back in the squad? I don't think so. Rix Pretorius as well. Yeah, I don't mind Rix Pretorius. I think Dan du Plessis is better, but Rix Pretorius is also, they're both the same age. I think one of them probably has to leave, to be honest. So hoping the Lions might be able to wrap one of them up. Opinion on Verder Cocker press against the British and Irish Lions. Yeah, he was very good against the British and Irish Lions. He's kind of fallen off that a little bit. He hasn't been great in the first couple of rounds of the URC, but hopefully we can get back into some decent form. I don't think he'll ever be Bok material. But look, it's still early days. My opinion is that SA should only expand, only take a few out. I kind of want France to stay to perform the Skulk Blitz type role at the next World Cup. He can bring great mentor for the likes of Fassi. Yeah, you could do that with him and Vermeulen, I suppose. I like the idea of Pollard at 12, Alton 10, I'm 13. I just think that Damien Dalendy is so good. How do you drop him? I think that's the biggest issue with that. Graham says we have a tough tour coming up. Do we go for the win and maintain the winning momentum on more spot, or do we go to develop depth? I think you got to try and find a little bit of balance, and that's why I'm very upset we're not playing a Barbarians game. I always like a tour with the Barbarians game where you can then play the youngsters. That was Alton Yankees about 2011. I think he played against the Barbarians in Springbok jersey. Hugh says Etzebeth impresses me. He's a rock. Always need someone like him. Great call face worker. No, he's unreal. I love the fact that there's so many players to choose from ahead of the World Cup, but it would be nothing if it come that time again, choose same old people again. Hasn't Alton been good this year in all games he's played for the Box? Yep. There's nothing wrong. I mean, he's been very good. He played, look, the 2 Springbok games he played, he's only played 2 tests. He played Argentina, where he got a try assist, he got 6 out of 7 kicks, and played very well. And then he came on to this cameo. He also played against the Bulls in that SAA game, and he was one of the best SAA players on the park. So he does look like a whole different player. I think people need. I think it's a very different player to what we saw 2 or 3 years ago. And I think he needs to be back to have a chance to do something. Visa's in line to be our regular 8 after Dwayne. I mean, I know he's kind of got the fast track. I'm just not entirely sure that he just gives me anxiety when I watch him. I just look at a guy who's a wrecking ball and a penalty walking, So I haven't yet been convinced by Visa. We had that big man of the match performance, and you're thinking, yes, there it is. But I think his soft skills also let him down at times. Do we trust him under a high ball? Do we trust him in a clutch situation not to make a mistake? I'm not convinced yet, but I think he can get there. Maybe our Congolese brothers qualifying by residency. Took a back row combo, Tumwe at wing, Colby at 15, and Galante at 13. I don't think we'll see Tumwe anytime soon. I like him, but I think that there are better wings in the country. There's better wings in the squad at the moment. But yeah, I want to see Vincent Tuka in that box squad. He needs. I mean, bloody Home Affairs need to come through. They sorted out Beast, they must sort out Vincent Tuka. I think that he's only going one way, and that's towards the Springboks. Louis says, my senders who should go to the end of their tours. Damien, Rickers, Dan, and Similani. Yeah, I can get behind that. Look, Rickers and Dan is a big call, but I can pretty much get behind that. As I said, I think Jesse Creel will go, but I haven't particularly impressed with him when he's come on. What's your predictions for the end of your tour? I think we beat Wales and Scotland, and England, I think, could go either way. I don't think there's any reason we shouldn't beat all 3. But I wouldn't mind if we do lose one of the games, if we do see a bit of rotation. At the end of the day, rugby is a sport, and you lose some games and you win some games. So obviously nobody wants to lose, but I can get over losing if there's a reason to it. If we are rotating, or if you put in a great performance and you lose, get over it. That's how rugby. That's how sport works. I don't like people who have complete meltdowns and throw the flippin' baby out with the bathwater and go after coaches and everyone's useless and get so flippin' miserable after a loss. It's sport. It happens. The problem is, unfortunately, Springboks, unlike the English Premier League, play 12 tests a year, not 55 matches. I think that's where the issue becomes. We just don't. There's not a lot of international rugby. So obviously, it's just such a big thing when you do lose. But I think we do need to understand that we will lose games. And it's okay to lose games. It's just as long as you're seeing good performances, as long as you're seeing progression, as long as you're seeing a long-term plan, you can get behind the team and you can kind of get into that. What about Marcel Coetzee? Has anybody been impressed by Marcel Coetzee in the URC so far? I don't think Marcel Coetzee is playing anywhere near well enough to be into the box squad. I know he's very tried and tested. He's a fantastic player, but I haven't been particularly impressed with him. I think Ulrich Lowe is outperforming him. I even think Arno Butt is looking a bit better at the moment. My back three is Dwayne, Ruiz, and Pepsi, and Chatuka. Yeah, look at it. Vincent can't go unless he's had Home Affairs to come through. But last time when I chatted to him in mid-year, he wasn't eligible yet. What do you think of Nama Klava as a choice for the end of the tour? Also a very nice player. We've got so many flanks, don't we? We've got so much talent on the flanks. I think that Chatuka should be there. Ulrich Lowe's up there. Pepsi Buthelezzi's up there. Obviously, you've got Nama Klava. You've got Evan Ruiz. There's some very, very nice. But we've always got loose forwards coming through. Loose forwards and locks have never been an issue in this country. It's bet to become SA's most capped Springbok. Could be, you know. How many does... I mean, he's coming up on his 100 next year. Victor Matfield's got 127. So 127. Etzebeth is currently on, I think, about 95 or 91, I think. Etzebeth. So we can do the math. He's 29 years old. Yeah, he'll definitely break that. He's on 90 games. So he's actually more than that, you know. So he's got 3 at the end of the year, which he could play all 3. That could be 93. If it is 90, I think it could be actually more, you know. But even if that's a 93, you've got potentially 12 next year. So let's say he plays 10 of them or 9 of them if he doesn't get injured. That takes him over 100. Another 10 the next year, 113. I mean, yeah, I reckon he could go. If not, he'll go very close, I reckon. Did Alton not play the Georgia? Yeah, he did actually. Came off right towards the end. Didn't get much to do. I think he missed a pretty poor kick, but that was about it. I think he played about 15 minutes tops. But yeah, true, he did. When do you think we can expect the new Bok call-ups? We'll have an announcement on the squad in the next week or two, because I think we travel. I think we're probably traveling in 2 weeks' time, around sort of the 22nd, I'd imagine we're traveling. No, in fact, probably more than that. We could be traveling as much as early as sort of the 17th, I reckon. So we might actually have a Bok squad announcement next week. As soon as I know what's going on, we'll keep you in the loop. France, Kevin says, France Day and Morning Day and Think Time. Unfortunately, they have the boost. Why did Australia destroy us? Because they're not as bad a side as I think we all thought. And I think that Dave Rennie actually earns and needs a bit of praise for that sort of side he's putting in. Why did Australia, Barbar's game, always a sevens game with 15 each side, see things nowhere else, always a few end-to-end tries scored. Okay, so I want to point out, Steve, I didn't like France Stain's reaction to conceding that penalty after the tackle on McKenzie. Was clearly on the wrong side and didn't roll away and acted like a football. Yeah, look, to be honest, I think he had a case. I think the more you look at it, I think the more he does dodge the ball. Yeah, look, I don't think you should ever react like that, but I do think he actually almost had a case. I do think I would like to have seen more videos on that. Because I thought initially I thought it was a stupid penalty to give away, but the more I see it, the more I think that there could have been a case of him losing the ball in contact. In which case, if he does rip the ball in contact, he's allowed to place it. But water under the bridge, I suppose. Yanti's lost his place. Talking about Yankees or talking about Dianti there? Bit of a combo there. Luke, check out Wibbly Rugby's video on the box versus odds. SC should not look for wins this end of year tour. They should bring the new guns for the next World Cup. France stole the ball mid tackle. McKenzie even rolled away from the rucks. Rugby and soccer having manager coach sacked every 5 minutes. What's take on the rest of the URC? It's like there's an agenda against the SA teams, or is it maybe because we haven't gotten the hang of the Northern Hemisphere type of refs? I always think it's a combination. You know, I always think that there's a big people saying that they've got an agenda against SA referees. We've got a whole bunch of people saying we don't understand the laws, and usually it's somewhere in the middle. I think that there has been a couple of rough calls. I also think a lot of it is adapting, and they do interpret things and blow things very differently to what we haven't done in the Southern Hemisphere. And what I think we also saw in the Rugby Championship is generally the refereeing performances were pretty decent, much better than what we've seen in South Africa. I had a big rant about February, talking about the quality of our referees, and I said that in South Africa they're not good enough. And I think that's probably not helped the fact that we're now getting pinged for things we don't see us getting pinged for often, but maybe things we should be. I don't know. But I will have to wait and see, I suppose. After Communion Quacker at 8, he scored a try from there. 6 Khaleesi, 7 Mustard, and 8 Smith. What about an Ali Kutsia back row of 6 Khaleesi, 7 Jolly Dupree, Dan Dupree? Look, I think a lot of people have. I think is it time now to start respecting Quacker Smith after the 2 games he had against New Zealand? I thought he was pretty tremendous in both games. So I was very happy with what I saw. I think that he's now sort of solidified a spot in that box squad. I think people are now starting to see what he brings. Thoughts on Marco Verstappen ball carrying? Yeah, I think Marco Verstappen is ahead of Jasper Wiese in my book after what we saw with that cameo off the bench. Very nice ball carrier, very good over the ground. He's now off overseas, so interesting how he goes. Archie is better than Eben. I mean, we've got so much quality in our locks between Eben, Archie, Blewett, and Franco Mostert. I don't think there's much between any of them, to be honest. Do you think the Boks will ever call up teams like the All Blacks do? I don't. Yeah, I mean we've done it in the past. Look, we've scored tries this year. We have scored tries. I don't know. We're never going to have the same sort of rugby, I don't think. But in many ways, I think it's because we don't have the same sort of rugby that we have been able to. At the end of the day, we've won 2 of our World Cups because of our physicality. So people can sit there saying, "Oh, we weren't always this team before Jake White." Well, since we did start bringing in the physicality and stuff like that, we did win 2007 World Cup, win the 2009 British and Irish Lions Series, win the 2019 World Cup, win the 2021 British and Irish Lions Series. So, I mean, I think we still can score a lot of tries. We still can beat teams by quite a lot of points. But I don't think we'll ever become fully sort of New Zealand, throw the ball around and stuff. Sean Felser, I think the reason, Matthew Dick says, thank you for the fan interaction, Stephen. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Fun fact, we went past 2 million views today, which is quite cool. So onwards and upwards. Personally, think the reason why the SA teams are not doing well in URC is because of one, where the 2 refs do the rules differently. Then the South, they only play each other for 18 months. Man United playing this weekend's international break. Hi there, we can't today because I want to give you all my money before I end my life. It's a bit hectic. But if you want to, you can. I mean, you can post a super chat. I mean, yeah. It's a bit dark. Frost take clearly game possession, the tackle. He doesn't look like he was injured for a year. Kwaka was huge versus New Zealand, given more time in via 2 assists. Graham, Fit Adventures also really kicked with the 50-22 rule, and they gave all backs the line out. Yeah, but if it's according to that video, then we carried it back, so they were right in calling it. Dupree Brothers should be left. Yeah, I've never really been massive Dupree Brother fans, but hey. How fast we stuff this injury? We're struggling in URC. I love there's not a lot of boxing. This comes to our building experience. Stop stressing. PSTF will only be back next year, but he won't be back with the Stormers because he has left. How many like replacements do we have in the squad? Well, it depends on the position, I suppose. But this is a little bit of a drop off. I think our front row. I think our front row is probably one of our biggest things in our Arsenal, because I think is there that much difference between Ox, Stephen Kitsoff, and Trevor at Lucid? Is there much difference between Frans Malherbe, Thomas Toy, or Volko Low and Trevor Tighthead? I don't think so. So I think that's a very, very big part of our depth at the moment. Also thinking of stamina. So yeah, just the URC. Yeah, I'm not panicking about the URC. I think we do need to be very, 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 very realistic with where we are. And we have had a brain drain for a while, but I don't really buy the brain drain that much. I mean, I know that there are. I mean, we look. I mean, look. The squad we've currently got has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players in the Premiership. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players in the top 14. 2 players playing in Ireland and 5 players playing in Japan. So only half our squad are SA based. So obviously the SA sides aren't as strong as we'd like them to be. But if we look at our sides from last week, last year, sorry, in the Super Rugby, and if you look at the squads from Super Rugby to this year, I think the Shark squad is stronger this year when they get their box back. You know, I mean, if you look at COVID, they lost. Who did they lose? They lost Andre Esterhuizen. They lost the lock. Who's the lock? They've lost JJ van der Mesht. Madosh Tambwe's gone on. And a couple of other, I think like Terim Tembu and a couple of, but they've brought in Sia Khaleesi, Bongi and Banambi. Pepsi Butalezi's come through. Fez and Barter's come through. So I think that the Sharks are a better squad than they were a year ago. I think the Bulls definitely are a better squad than they were a year ago. The Lions aren't. And the Stormers probably aren't. But so 50-50, really. But I think we'll get there with the URC. It's a long season. It's a long season. I'm sorry. Me watching that Scarlets match on Friday as a Lions fan, all I thought was we're in this contest for about 55 minutes. Do me a favor, come to South Africa, play at Ellis Park. You won't do this to us. You might win, but it will not be that same game. So I think when we start having those other game stuff and those factors, I think we will start picking up wins. We will start adapting. I'm not worried. And I think a couple of comments to the earlier video said, when we start playing the European Champions Cup and we start the more money that starts coming in, we'll be able to start bringing more players, but and also keeping more of our players. Let's keep Evan Roos in the country. Let's keep Similani in the country. Let's keep Hesi Buthelezi in the country. And I think we'll be okay. Ruben says Kwaka is the most underrated player in the Springboks squad. You can't deny him and Van Staden with the bench is some next level shit. France versus New Zealand will win. France will win. I like France. France is such a nice team to watch. URC is going to be rough until SSIs round up some of our players playing for the European sides. URC money should help with that. Might take some time. Agree. Thoughts on staff can death for flower halves. Well, they'll add Johan Goosen. They'll move up Morné Steyn. And then after that, we need to look at some youngsters. And I want to see Jordan Henderson coming through. I want to see what, when he comes back, Tate Volta in a couple of years' time can do. A couple of other players coming through. But yeah, I think we'll be okay. A lot of SA players in the French league. Did anyone catch the joke the Oz commentator made of Kwaka's nose this weekend? I didn't catch it myself. Yeah, shame. It's not a great one, is it? When the Box tournament will be better in the URC, Stormers and Sharks will be strong with Box back. Sharks will have an all Springbok back 3. No, I mean that backline for the Sharks is childish. The only person they might not have a Springbok cap play in is that because they've also got that Argentinian fly half, We should be happy for the Box. 3 years ago, and as you could see, things were awful. Now we have won 3 trophies to beat the All Blacks to reclaim the number 1 spot. Good shout. I think Jason Jenkins might make his first start on Sunday for Munster. Hope he does. Be cool to see. What is the latest on the Stormers board brawl? Oh, don't even go there. I don't know, actually. Okay, Volta, your opinion on Curran Bosch. I think Curran Bosch, unfortunately, needs to probably move if he wants to get his career back on side, because I think at the moment he's kind of nowhere at the Sharks. Kay Volta, I think, is a very talented player, but I'm also very aware of how young he is, and we need to stop getting too excited. So he has got injured now. Can he come back from injury? Same thing with Jordan Hendrickson. Very exciting player, very, very young. Let's wait and see, shall we? Yeah, I saw the Dragons Leinster game was low scoring. I was playing golf, so I actually didn't catch it. But yeah, so we've got about 9 minutes left on the show. Now, people, so in terms of content, stuff like that, I'm going to be uploading the highlights of our my reaction of the weekend's reaction, which is going to be a very good laugh. On my personal channel and stuff like that, but also a very exciting project I want to share with you guys. So I am launching, in fact, I think, and I'm going to end the poll here, remove the message that was pinned. We're launching a pretty cool, on my personal channel, we're launching a footy site, which is going to be a lot of fun, and doing a whole lot of new content on my personal channel. So if you would like to check out what's going on that side, and we're going to start uploading more to the reaction videos and stuff like that, like the one from this weekend. Please do go and subscribe to my first channel, which is the CVP channel. Yeah, I really appreciate it. You guys got me up to 1,000 subscribers on Forever Rugby. So let's see if we can do it on my personal one as well, which would be quite cool. So yeah, so if you can sort of see that, we're going to be doing quite a lot of sort of reaction stuff. We're going to be starting a football side, which is going to be a good laugh. It's going to be a good laugh. So if you want to laugh at me trying to attempt to play football, and got a big golf tour and stuff coming up and stuff like that, which we're also going to do a very cool video about that, then go and check out that channel. But in terms of, before we end off, Louis says Ricky should play overseas. Bosch needs to go overseas. So yeah, look, I mean, I don't think a lot of these players need to go overseas much, but I think they need a bit of a new environment. But yeah, so in terms of the RJ Smith incident, he has been cited. We spoke about it a little bit at the beginning of the match. It was against Niall Scannell that apparently he bit. The citing commissioner, I think it's tomorrow. Yeah, we'll meet on Thursday to consider the citing complaint against RJ Smith of DHS Stormers, which occurred against Munster on Saturday. Now, unfortunately, if they do find him guilty, he's looking at a very, very, very long ban, because I think it's at least 12 weeks for biting, as it probably should be, to be fair. I don't see them finding evidence in terms of the videos. I think it's we saw it on Saturday. That's very difficult to sort of see any evidence of him actually biting him from the video there. But you know, it's not just video evidence. They'll look at player testimonies. Maybe they'll mark stuff on the player, stuff like that. I think he could be in trouble though, to be honest. I think majority of the time when there is a biting complaint, there unfortunately does tend to be there's usually truth in it, which is a bit scary. So yeah, it's a pity because I thought he played well on Saturday. But if you're gonna buy people, then what must happen? What must happen? Camilla says if Evan should get Bach call up, well, we'll see, won't we? What do you think about this of your Sharks wingers? The current Sharks winners. Well, first of all, they're not my Sharks winners. I disassociate myself from the Sharks. But these Shark winners, Thackeray Abrams and Yao Penkley. I think Thackeray Abrams is very good, but I think he's too small. And everybody will say, "Oh, but Cheslin Colby, he's not Cheslin Colby. I don't think he's physical enough." I think if we're looking at flipping Cheslin Colby for all that he's small, it's 74. I mean, have you seen Cheslin Colby without a shirt on? Like, come now. It's he's not. He's small, but he's not that small. I think Thackeray Abrams is not nearly as physical, and I don't think he's quite the same caliber. So yeah, I think he's got nice feet. I think he should be playing the 7th circuit. But yeah, Penkley, he's a nice player. He's a very hard working player. Unfortunately, they're not going to get much game time when the Boks get back. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with those two, but they probably need to maybe go elsewhere, or I don't know what's going to happen to them. But I don't think we'll see too much of them. We're not talking about Man United. They're an international break. There's no need to bring that up. Grasswire Storms can't afford any more locks. Well, if you're lucky, maybe Marvin Ori doesn't make the end of your tour and you get him back. So at least he'll be back for December. Jakob Fenner says the Sharks owner just bought Saracens last week, so a strategic relationship in all likelihood follow. Maybe Bosch should go down to Saints for a bit and rediscover his form and then come back. Interesting idea. Very interesting idea. Goodbye, Kevin. What about Stuart Hogg's biting was blatant and recorded? Yeah, look, at the time I said I was surprised he got away with it. I would have also liked to have seen Itoje cited for that kneeing on De Lindy's neck. But unfortunately, just because I also think, 2 wrongs don't make a right in the whole thing. So RJ Smith did bite someone, then cite him and ban him. Just like I think Stuart Hogg should have been cited and banned. But yeah, we're pretty much going to wrap up there. We'll maybe go through a couple of comments, stuff like that. Please do continue. Otherwise, I see a couple of you guys have subscribed to the DVP channel, so I really do appreciate that. If you have, I want to do a lot more fun stuff on there. Not just sort of news and chats and stuff like that, which I do enjoy doing, but a little bit more fun stuff. What do you think of Marcel Tennyson? I think he's a decent player. I want to see more of him there. I think he sort of struggles to ever sort of hold down a spot. But do you think Archer Stayman will play the end of your tour? I mean, I don't see why he wouldn't. I'm not sure what the situation is there, but I don't see why he wouldn't. Surely he comes back. We can but hope. We can but hope. But it was good to see him back and scoring a try. And he's such a good player that we need him back. But yes, right. Any people? Hope you've had a good week. Hope you guys are all keeping well and stuff like that. We're gonna wrap up there. So we'll be back tomorrow night on our panel show tomorrow night, which will be live probably about 9 o'clock as well. It's gonna be myself. I know Carl's gonna come. I'm not sure if Lecanyo or Dylan will be joining us, but we'll try and put together a bit of a panel tomorrow, and we're gonna just sort of talk about the URC and stuff like that. Sort of look at some of the week games we can. A couple of the teams will be announced. We'll be able to look at that as well. Hugh says English goodness Premier League, very stodgy games, but basic and boring, but Gloucester play more often. Grant says, do you think the amateur vid analysis floating around is hurting yesterday's rep? Yeah, unfortunately, I think with that video, it does. I mean, even the interpretation of the rules are wrong, which, is not great. I think some of the things, as I said, usually, as is often with the case, some of it is right, some of it's wrong. And unfortunately, as I said, I don't like targeting refs for interpretation for what they see in terms of offsides. I think it's always so close. And I think the interpretation of the 50-22 rule is just wrong. Like, it's literally just wrong. But yeah, people, keep safe. Please keep well. Get vaccinated so you can get back into stadiums. I'm fully vaxxed now. It's a big whoop. I can now hopefully get back to S Park very soon. As I said, I'm gonna drop one last time. Forgive me. I'm gonna try and plug myself one last time. If you haven't, please do go and subscribe to the CVP channel. We're gonna have the highlights of this weekend's live stream, reaction. over there. In fact, I'm actually going to upload it after this video, so it should be up either tonight or tomorrow morning, so you can go and relive the reaction to us beating the All Blacks. That'll be on that channel tomorrow morning, and then we're going to have some very cool content coming up there. People, keep very well. Smash like on the video. Subscribe if you're new. We're on the road to 10,000 subscribers. How cool is that? We literally need another 1,700 subscribers, and we'll get up to 10,000 by the end of the year, which is pretty ludicrous. So, yeah, thank you very much. We'll continue to be for your support and stuff like that. And we'll see you guys hopefully on the weekends for all our various watch alongs. We'll have a schedule on that on Friday. Keep well, and thank you very much.